at the same time, a new article has been released on same-sex marriage. This article has been published in the Social Science Quarterly by Towson University assistant professor Amy Becker. Amy joins us this morning to talk about this study, and we're going to get her thoughts on that in just a minute. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
All right, I know that this is a huge piece of research that you did, and I want to read an excerpt first before we get to talking about it, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right, so you said it's called New Voters, New Outlook, Predispositions, Social Networks, and the Changing of Politics of Gay Civil Rights. So here's the excerpt from your study. You said, in the research, we show that the factors that shape public acceptance of homosexuality and support for same-sex marriage vary dramatically across age cohorts. Personal contact and social proximity have a greater impact on attitudes and policy preferences of younger individuals. On the other hand, religious and ideological conservative value orientations have a greater influence on the attitudes and policy preferences of older individuals. Interesting. All right, so how'd you come up with this?
Well, I worked with a co-author, Dietram Schweifele, who's a professor at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and we've been doing some work to look at what factors shape public acceptance of homosexuality and support for same-sex marriage. And we wanted to look at whether those, what influences attitudes were different for younger voters versus older voters.
So what do you think it is that's influencing people? Is it the social acceptance that we're seeing in television shows? Is it, the dialogue about it? And is it maybe just that times have changed and younger people are more accepting of this?
Well, I think some of it is what we're seeing in the media, that we see more gay characters on television, right? But it's mostly that for young people, they are coming to know more gay men and lesbians within their social network. And it's not just, people who they work with, but it's close family members and friends. And that's really influencing their attitudes and making the issue feel a little bit more relevant than it would otherwise.
So now that you've published this article, what happens now and what's the next step with this?
Well, I think that we want to look at, continue to look at the issue and see how attitudes shape changing perceptions of marriage and also of family, what it means to be a family. So we're going to start to look at basically the impact on perceptions of marriage and also family.
How closely are you watching what's going on in Annapolis today?
Very closely. I think it's a very interesting debate. I think that it's going to be something that we're going to be dealing with for the next, really until November 2012.
You think it'll go to a referendum?
I do. I think it's going to pass in the Senate and the House, and the governor will sign it. But I think that there's enough opposition in the state that we're going to be looking at this issue for some time.
I know I'm asking you to sort of consult your crystal ball, but if it does go to a referendum, if it's up to voters, any idea where Maryland? I don't know if you've discovered anything in your research where we stand with all of this.
Well, across the country, there's about 53% opposition towards legalizing same-sex marriage. Similar in Maryland, there's a little bit, it's more 50-50, but I think what will ultimately happen is it depends on how groups for the amendment, or for the bill and against the bill, sort of communicate with voters and what kind of messages they put out that will motivate people to come to the polls in November, if it does become a referendum, which I think it will.
And if it does, will you come back and talk to us, give us your thoughts on it?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm going to be watching this very closely.
All right, well, it's a pleasure having you in. Thanks so much.
Thanks.